Hello everybody and welcome to another Tales. I'm your host, Dan the Bigfoot Man from the state of Maine, and today we're going to take a little trip down to Connecticut, and we're going to talk about something called the Cotton Hollow Bigfoot. This is from an article from July 1st of 1898 out of the Morning Record, which was a Connecticut newspaper of the time. And it actually is a story of a gigantic wild man. It's an interesting aspect of this story that we'll get into after I read the article. It's a wild man story, but, well, first of all, many of you who have been following me realize that my work involves mostly the folklore aspect of the wild man and how it ties into these Bigfoot sightings. And my belief is that the vast majority of actual Bigfoot sightings are actually of wild men or people that want to live outside of society for one reason or another. They do exist. I've actually encountered two of them in person over the last couple of 3 years. So I do know that there are people out there that are hermits. They don't want to have anything to do with society. And they are human. Although when you see them in the depths of the wood like that, undressed in their finery, you kind of wonder whether or not they're really human at all. Maybe in body, but not entirely of mind. But this is about a gigantic wild man. The description of this and the size of the footprints lead me to believe that this is one of those aspects, or encounters rather, where they may have actually encountered a Bigfoot, or what we call a Bigfoot, and it also is just one more anecdotal piece of evidence that indicates that we're really looking for the wrong thing. We're not looking for, while we're looking for some sort of a wild ape-like creature, in reality what we should be looking for is a human being, or someone that is very like a human being. But we'll get right into the article. Again, this is from a region of Connecticut that's situated just east of the Connecticut River and south of Glastonbury and Glastonbury Center. It's now a state park. Back then it was just a stretch of woods, and these four men from Danbury, Connecticut, had a encounter with this creature. But here's the article. Cotton Hollow Wild Man. 4 Danbury men frightened by a giant in the woods. Danbury, June 29th. 4 Danbury men discovered a gigantic wild man last week in Cotton Hollow, a section of country between High Rock Grove and Naugatuck. They were Jerry Wilson, Howard Bradley, James Durbin, George Howes, and were working in that vicinity. On the night of their discovery, they had been spending the evening with friends near High Rock Grove and were returning to their stopping place through the woods between 11 and 12 o'clock at night. As they were trudging along, a man of gigantic stature sprang up in front of them from among the bushes and shouted out to Wilson, who was ahead, "How far is it to the next town?" 3 miles, said Wilson, with his hair standing on end and his eyes almost bulging from their sockets. And just as an aside here, yes, it did take me several takes to get that sentence out. The picture just would not leave my mind. But anyhow, on with the article. Without saying anything more, the giant started off on a wild run and disappeared in the woods and the dark. All 4 of the men had seen him, however, before he was out of sight, and they were satisfied that he was at least twice as tall as any one of their party, and correspondingly as large, very other way. They acknowledged to having been pretty thoroughly scared by this sudden appearance. The next morning they commenced systematic investigations. They went back to the place of their discovery and measured the foot tracks of the giant. They were 18.5 inches long and 5.5 inches broad. The heel track alone measured 5 inches. Then they made inquiries of the people who live in Cotton Hollow and were informed that such a man had been seen several times. He was known to be at least 9 feet tall and weigh not less than 500 pounds. Unless the vision of these men was greatly magnified on that night, and unless the people of the neighborhood told them a story to suit the occasion, they saw a character that Barnum and Bailey ought to have to exhibit in the Englishman as a specimen of American products. They are willing to swear to the truth of their statements and are sure that they saw a man who would be a giant among giants. That's the end of the article. I want to get back to the measurements of this thing. A lot of the dimensions of this character are equitable to what we have for Bigfoot descriptions today. They claim that he was 9 feet tall. You have to understand this is at night. They were scared, and they're probably not real accurate on that. Possibly might have been 8 feet tall. No way of knowing since I wasn't there, of course, but this is just conjecture on my part. But I do know that when we see things very often, we tend to exaggerate in our minds, at least, what we're looking at. So something that is unusually large seems to us to be actually larger than it really is. I've had that encounter many, many times. Where I live, there are a lot of very, very tall people. Some of them easily approaching 7 feet or so. A lot of athletic type people. A lot of people, even the women, will stand far over me. And I've always kind of estimated them in my mind at being taller than they really are. But when they get against something that I know is a specific height, and I can compare it to that, then I have a more reasonable and accurate guesstimate as to what their actual size would be. So while some of them may look like they were well over 7 feet, probably the tallest one that I've ever seen was about 7 foot tall, maybe 6'11". Kind of hard from the distance to get down to the inch, but judging by the shelving that they were against, that's what I would guesstimate their size to be. But anyhow, next morning they weren't so scared. They actually went back and they measured foot tracks, which were 18.5 inches long and almost square-shaped with 5.5 inches broad, with 5-inch heels. So it's a kind of a different kind of a track, and it sounds dimensionally a lot like a lot of the Bigfoot tracks that we find today. Was it a Bigfoot? Hard to tell. Who knows? And it's possible. Again, I don't know this for a fact. This is conjecture on my part, and this is one of the theories that I'm working on. And of course, my opinions are subject to change dependent upon empirical evidence that I'm presented with. So if somebody can prove me to be wrong in something, then I'm going to be the first one to say that I'm wrong in something, and my opinion will change. However, to get into the grit of the matter, I'm wondering and theorizing that it's quite possible that these Bigfoot are actually humans, and from time to time they not only have interaction with human beings as we know of ourselves today, they actually try to integrate themselves back into society or become part of humanity as a whole. I have some historical angles on this story that I'm working on, but it's going to take a long time. Some of the stuff that I've got links to or have references to are actually foreign language, some of them very old. I don't have linguistic training in translation for a lot of these languages, so I have to take it careful, have to take it slow, and I have to find people who are actually able to do some translations for me into actual verbatim translations and transcripts, as opposed to changing a 2,000-year-old word into a word that's used today. And we all know that the language changes as time passes. Bottom line is, language changes, and a lot of the things that used to mean one thing mean something entirely different today. So translating these old languages are difficult. But anyways, we'll cut it off here. I've already gone on longer than I wanted to. This is just one of the theories that I'm working on, and this has to deal with an old story that I found coming out of the state of Maine from back in the 1800s. Anyhow, thanks for tuning in to Bigfoot Tales. Hope you subscribe and come back for more. And don't forget to check out my my new book, Could Bigfoot Be Human? It's available on my Lulu bookfront site or storefront. I'll put a link in the description of the this video down below. Until then, happy squatching.